Yeah, 100%. Maybe I used that in the sense a little bit wrong, but I think,
No, no, no. Spot on, spot on.
yeah, yeah,
He'll
but
love being called a maverick.
yeah, they probably call me Goose after this interview. But like I said,
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
Hello and welcome along to House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe together with Guinness. I'm Eimear and I'm joined remotely today by Ian Madigan. We are both jointly excited to welcome Ian's Ulster teammate and Springbok with 30 caps, Marcell Coetzee. Marcell, welcome onto the show today.
oh, thank you very much for hosting me, man. It's always an honor and a pleasure to chat with my man Ian. And yeah, no, it'd be great to have some rugby stories around the table tonight.
I can't wait to
Absolutely,
hear
it's
some
great
of
to
them.
have you on, Marcel. Yeah, no, it's going to be good. Obviously, disappointing loss for us at the weekend, but we'll be sure to talk about that and your experiences with the South African rugby team and coming back from injuries and yeah, no, it'll be a good show. Looking forward to it.
How did he manage to get you on? What bribe has he over you that you managed to come on the show here tonight?
Yeah, well, I think his timing was very, very good, actually. I just got concussed, and then right after the concussion, he asked me, "Do I want to be on the show?" So I just thought, yeah, well, I'll probably not play this weekend, so no, we'll definitely have time. But yeah, no, look, he's always send me links through, and it was great always listening to House of Rugby, the podcast, and I saw you guys at Skulkberg on, which was also great to see him and how he's doing with life after rugby. And yeah, no, just from my side, a huge honor and a privilege to be invited, man.
So basically you're saying that Ian caught you while you weren't thinking straight with the concussion is what you basically have said in a roundabout way.
Sign the contract. Sign the contract.
Yeah, no, basically. No. Well, look, the symptoms is going well so far. So once you started thinking clearly, you think, yeah, no, this could be really fun. So no, don't worry about it.
Yeah, how's your turn to play coming on?
Yeah, well, I think going into this week, we'll take the necessary steps, the return of protocol story with the HIA, so if that all goes well, then hopefully you'll be ready to be in the mix again, it's tough watching the boys play and you're not involved, so no, you're definitely hungry to get out there, but safety as well comes first, and you just need to make sure you're 100% instead of a 50-50 then, no?
Yeah, we were chatting a lot about that last week, but Marcel, I was doing some analysis or some research on you before you came on in today, and I've never met somebody who has the exact same birthday as me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, if everything is right, if everything is correct online, the 8th of May 1991, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, no.
Very good.
All three of us born in 91. How good.
Are we? Oh my God, such babies. Although I was going to say that, but we're all 30 next year, so we'll be lying very soon.
Yeah, that's been hanging over my head a bit. You always, when you started playing, you considered the guys turning 30 old players, but nowadays you call them experienced players, so now I'll go for that one then.
Yeah, we've got to be more strategic how we speak about our age going forward.
I know, absolutely. Start lying on the programmes, on the team sheets. Anyway, we're going to get stuck into that more in part 2, and we'll chat about your future hopes with South Africa and all things Ulster in a little bit. But we're going to start off with our Guinness House of Rugby Hall of Fame. So this week, ahead of the Champions, or after the Champions Cup games, and there was lots of exciting games there this weekend, we asked you on our Twitter and our Facebook pages to talk about your highlight of the weekend. And I am delighted, as a Munster woman, that Len Carmody and Shane Cook both shared great images of CJ Stander smiling at the Clermont boys as Munster won another great penalty. So I'm sure you guys saw that on Twitter over the weekend, the picture of CJ smiling. That must be awful for an opposition team when he's getting into your head doing that. Ian, what do you think?
Was that CJ? Was that the one of them in the mall and he was kind of smiling? Yeah. I've spoken to Marcel a bit about this. I'd love to be getting involved in a few more malls because they just look very enjoyable. For the backs, we're out there running around, doing all passing. It's difficult. You're working your core. You're out in the elements. I look over at the forwards and they're all snug, pushing against each other. It just looks enjoyable. It goes well. Everyone's there ass tapping each other afterwards. Look at CJ's face there. He's loving every bit of it.
Yeah, it's enjoyable when it goes well, but if it doesn't going well, then it's another expression you can give, So, no, Ian, look, I'll always back you, my man. But Not this time. I'm sorry. I know you do your job very, very well. Let's keep it at that, eh?
Every so often you hear the lads going, "Yeah, but you're in there and there's people stepping on your toes." It's like, oh god, here we go.
I have
Oh,
absolutely
man.
no
The shin
idea.
kicks and
I'd be the person at the back of the scrum when if someone needed like an extra flanker, if someone happened to go off and you needed a flanker, I don't think I'd even know where to like put hands. Like I would be that person that there would be like highlight reels actually made of how awful I would be, even in a mall. Wouldn't even know how to join a mall. So maybe 2021 might be the year, Ian, for the two of us to start joining up those malls.
Maybe get us on the back of it, dotting the ball down for the try.
Anyway, we'll stop talking about malls and we will mention the Munster win at the weekend against Clermont. I think as a Munster supporter, as a Munster player, I'm still living on the high of that game at the weekend. I'm sure you've heard the hype of the game. They were very, very slow to start. They were down quite a bit, 28-9 at half-time, and managed to pull it back in typical Munster fashion.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was really tough going behind away from home, and I think it's another example as well of, like, not to take away from the achievement. It's obviously fantastic, but with supporters not in the stadiums, we are definitely seeing more teams winning away from home in the competition than we usually would. But when you're away from home and things aren't going to plan initially, to still be able to stick to your plan like they did and just slowly get yourself back into the game, build your momentum, and then quite often we see in sport when a team comes back from a big deficit and draws or goes ahead, they almost mentally switch off. And what I found really impressive was when they got back to kind of level par or snuck their heads in front, they had the kind of mental aptitude to finish it off, and that was really, really impressive. And ensuring that Clermont only got 1 bonus point. What did you think of it, Mars?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of tactics that was implemented on the day, but ultimately for me, being behind with that margin, it just tells you about the team culture, what they were willing to do for each other to come back in that game, and it's little moments like CJ holding a guy up, forcing a penalty. You take that last try where the maul just worked out for them. That's a time where the team comes together and say, listen, this is a big moment, let's execute, and bang on. They were accurate in their play and stuff, and it's brilliant, for an Irish point of view, a province point of view, yeah.
I've been chatting during the week to a few of the girls in the rugby team, and they said obviously they got such a slow start against Harlequins last week, and that the same thing couldn't happen away to Clermont. I know there's no stadium and no crowd in the stadiums, but it's still not an easy place to get a win. I don't think they've ever actually got a win over there. But here we go again. A very slow start, but JJ Hanrahan was superb from the tee. He's done it so many times, but it just showed the patience and the ability to stick to the game plan and just not to panic, to keep taking away the scoreboard. And eventually Mike Haley got that try, a really good pass from Peter O'Mahony as well to set him into space there. But it was just the patience that Munster showed to claw back, and they weren't panicking and kicking to the corner and going to try and get try after try. They were just being patient and kicking to post, which really showed the character of the team and the Munster boys.
Yeah, certainly. Definitely signs of the Munster of old, and they're well positioned now. 2 wins from 2, an away win on the road, and it bodes well from going into the kind of return fixtures in January.
I think the Munster boys as well, the young guys that came on, there was quite a few substitutions made for a finish, but O'Byrne coming on and getting the try, and even Jack O'Donoghue coming on, and the impact that they've made, and Wycherley starting. So I think we've spoken so often about the Leinster boys and that they have the young guys coming through, and I think we're finally seeing the homegrown talent that the Munster boys are making. And I, as a Munster woman, am very, very proud of that. But we'll move over to your game. This is the second week, Ian, that we're chatting about a disappointing loss. How are you feeling after the weekend?
Yeah, certainly. It's disappointing for us. We could definitely be sitting on 10 points. It wasn't inconceivable for us to score a late try against Toulouse last week, and that would have been 5 points. And then we already had the bonus point against Gloucester, and unfortunately let the game slip away late on. Credit where credit's due to Gloucester. They played really well on the day. They built up a lead, allowed us back into the game, and I thought we played some brilliant rugby in the second part of the middle 20 minutes of the second half. We'd gone 14 points down, we'd a period in the first half where we only had 13 men, and they came out, scored a good try, and we still stuck to our plan and got ourselves back into the game. And even watching it, I kind of sensed there wasn't any real panic when we were 14 points down with about a half an hour to go. And we had some great passages of plays, scored some really good tries, and ultimately built up a lead only to lose it in the last play of the game, which was disappointing for us. And I think at this level, at that high European level, any mistakes are really showing up, and the small number of mistakes we've made over the last 2 weekends have been really costly. What do you think, Mars?
Yeah, it's always easy to speak if you don't play, you know what I'm saying, but I think in the thick of things, I think first of all, the guys did very, very well too. Obviously discipline didn't go away with the 2 yellow cards, and to manage not give up points in that period, was brilliant for me from the side. It shows about our own culture we have in the team. And, and managed to fight back, after the rain set and I saw at halftime, I thought, this will be tough to get back, because the game just kind of slows down. You have to rely on moments and such, But, got a bit of John Cooney magic as well from the team, the good continuity play with each other, managed to score another try. So, with 10 points up, I really felt very comfortable, in the game that, this can go our way, And it's like you said, Ian, you can't afford to have soft moments, even in the 78th minute, there was a knock and then it was a scrum penalty, and then, it just kind of leads to pressure being built on you. We got a yellow again, So, I think the big thing we take out of the game is we have to look hard at our discipline. It's like you say, we cannot afford to give it away at that level, and it kind of punished us towards the end. But, in general, I would just say, it's one we'll have to take on the chin, and we'll just have to reassess and just hit the reset button.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you. It's the kind of compounding of errors and, as you said, the discipline. But, similar to what you were saying, Eimear, about, the positives with Munster, like we've seen, they've gone 8 from 8 in the league and now 2 from 2 in Europe. And it's been great that they've stuck by some of the guys who've been performing for them in the league, in the Guinness Pro 14. And it's very similar for us. We've had guys like James Hume stepping up and proving himself at European level again this year. Mike Lowry, I thought was fantastic at the weekend. Ethan McElroy coming off the bench, he's shown what he can do in the Guinness Pro 14. So there are lots of positives for us to take, and unfortunately at the moment we have a lot of injuries in our squad. The likes of Ian Henderson's out at the moment, Jack McGrath. A few guys that were unavailable through head knocks from the previous week, like Marcell and Sam, and then obviously Kieran Treadwell's been out, with a ban. So, there's a lot of guys who are close to coming back, and for us, we're going to scramble for every point in Europe. There's no doubt about that. We've got Gloucester at home, and then we've got to go away to Toulouse, and we believe that we can win those 2 games, and if that means we can sneak into the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup, great. But if it means we're dropping down into the Challenge Cup, I think that would be a fantastic competition for us to go after as a team. And you kind of reset your goals off the back of disappointing defeats, but there is plenty of positives for us to take.
Absolutely, and you'd be focusing, I suppose, Europe is just in the back of your minds at the moment, and those Interpro games over Christmas, you've got Connacht next weekend. Marcell, do you think that you will be fit and able and hopefully selected for that game?
Yes, it will be awesome, just to join the boys again, but, there are certain protocols that we need to follow before I can give a definite answer, but, I am hopeful, but, it just depends on a day-by-day basis, whether you feel the symptoms again or not, doing some exercises, but, yes, I'll really look forward to it now.
Yeah, there's been quite a few, Ian, you said about the injuries, like not just head knocks, but there's been quite a few injuries in general, not just in the Ulster team, but in Leinster too. We saw the 2 boys pull out prior to the game even starting. But is it down to the schedule in this year, or, the amount of games that you've had to play? Or are they just, do you think is there a link between the amount of games, or is it just by chance that these injuries have been happening?
Yeah, there's definitely an element of luck or bad luck, with every injury. It's hard to say, oh look, unless it's a muscle tear that's coming from fatigue, that you can look at it and go, oh, that's caused from just playing too many games or training too much. But I think if you look back over the last period, the end of last season, the 4, 5, 6 games that just rolled into this year. So like while we've played 10 games this season, it really is 15 or 16 games. And there hasn't been too many breaks within it. And then as well, for a large part of the Irish guys who are involved with the international setup, there's been far more international games. So it has been a challenging week to week schedule for a lot of the players. And I know at this time, guys probably haven't been doing as much weights and as conditioning as they would usually. So the body's probably feeling a bit fatigued. But look, the way the schedule is, you've just got to pull your sleeves up and keep going. We're coming into 3 crucial inter-pro games for us, which are, effectively Irish trials. Now, I don't know how many of the internationals who played in the Autumn Nations Cup will be playing. I'm sure they'll be rested for maybe 1 or 2 of those games. But look, there's no better opportunity for guys to put their hand up for national selection to be playing in those. So, while there might be a bit of fatigue, there's also great excitement, and there's always great viewership. I know we're not going to have the supporters in the stands over the Christmas and festive period, but I'm sure they'll be watching from at home, and the players will be fully aware of that.
I know as a supporter, I always look forward to the Interpro games. They're always such high quality rugby, and I'm sure this year won't be any different because, as you said, players are up for selection essentially. But John Cooney is one that, has been playing phenomenally. There was an incident at the weekend that a lot of people were talking about. He went to take a conversion and the ball fell off the tee, and then he ended up not being able to take it. So as a 10, can you talk through, one, the rules around that, and 2, what could have happened or what should he have done differently?
Yeah, so there is actually a few different rules with it. So, for example, if you're taking a conversion after scoring a try, and the ball falls off the tee before you've started your run-up, you're allowed to replace the ball and still take the kick. If you have started your run-up and the ball falls off the tee, you then have to pick it up and effectively do a drop kick with it. What's different with that, with a penalty kick to touch or to at goal, if the ball falls off the tee and you haven't started your run-up, you can replace the ball and kick it. If the ball falls off the tee and you have started your run-up, you're still allowed to replace the ball and kick it again, providing you're still within the minute. So you have a minute to kick the ball for a penalty. So what actually happened with John at the weekend was his minute was effectively just up when the ball fell off the tee. So the ref has deemed he's used the time and he hadn't kicked the ball, so it's a scrum down to the opposition. So it was bad luck, but I think what happened there was because we had the 2 guys in the sin bin, he was trying to get every second out of the clock before they came back on. So it was something that he can't be blamed for, but it was just very, very unlucky and very unusual that the ball held on for that long and then fell off just before he kicked it. But that's how the
You would say he planned it, though. You would say
yeah, exactly. He'd be like, don't, that kick does not count in my stats. That's what he'll be saying.
I'll just follow the rules, coach.
Yeah. He was probably told, slow it down, and this is what happened. Now he's got everyone talking about him, but at least he made up for it with the amazing try that he got out on the edge then for a finish. He managed to redeem himself.
John was fantastic again. He's an absolute joy to play with. I thought he had some fantastic goal kicks yesterday in really kind of windy conditions. Obviously that was unfortunate with the ball falling off the tee. And then he nearly does it every game for us, Morris. He comes up with a big moment. There's nothing really on. Ball spills out of the ruck. He's just opportunistic. Like he just makes his own luck. That's John. But like he does that stuff in training all the time, doesn't he?
I think he's a player that backs himself. So he's one of those guys. He's like a maverick in the team. He can pull something out of nothing. And you need that player in your team when the games are tight and crunchy. You need a bit of X factor moment. I always think of that Clermont moment in last year's European game where we were so tight and everything, and all of a sudden he just creates something with incredible skill set that he has. And look, it's like you say, it's an enjoyment to play with the man. Off the field as well, he's a great guy. Always makes time for you, never too busy, and I think people underestimate the big work ethic that he has. He's always working on this or that. And he's really, like I said, a very confident player in himself. And it's just great for him to see doing well. Particularly yesterday, when it was also, a bit of tightness and a bit of crunch time, there Cooney does his moment, and you just need those players on the field, definitely.
Yeah,
It's
and like
easy for.
while you say he's a bit of a Eimear, while
No,
you
go
say
on.
he's a bit of a maverick, there's no one more passionate about the team and wanting the team to win. It's not like he wants to do it for himself or anything like that. Like John's one of the best team players I've come across, and I think part of what makes him great is his ability to kind of spot those opportunities and back himself to go after them.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe I used that in the sense of a bit wrong, but I think,
No, 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 spot on, spot on. He'll
but
love being called a maverick.
yeah, they probably call me Goose after this interview. But like I said, the thing is with him, whatever he does, I think we as a team just back whatever he does, because if he's choosing to do something, it's a react phase for a player just to make it work for him, and yeah, man, it's just, there was one of those times I'd rather play with him than against him.
For sure. And it hasn't been easy for him either, with the disappointment of not getting selected again for the Guinness Six Nations this season, and to come back, and he could have gone two ways. Like anyone could have done, it would be easy just to wallow and feel sorry for yourself. But he's come back and he has just absolutely proved that he is well capable, and he's done it in every game, and he's been consistently one of Ulster's best players for the last season or season or two, and has proved it day in, day out. So hopefully he'll get a look into next year's Guinness Six Nations in the Irish squad. Looking back at the weekend's games as well, Leinster were playing. Before the game, there was two injuries before it even started, which is really strange. So Caelan Doris pulled out, and also Harry Burns pulled out on his first European start. So obviously two changes to the Leinster squad ahead, and we just spoke about the injuries. I don't know, was it a knock or what? Was it soft tissue damage? But, Leinster still managed to pull away and get that win, 35-19. Then Northampton were in the game for quite a bit of it, but Leinster managed to pull away in typical Leinster fashion, as they always do. Marcell or Ian, did you guys catch that game?
Unfortunately, no.
I think it's important to know, just like so people see, players getting injured in the warm up. It's something we've probably seen a bit more in the last couple of years, but I think it's important for supporters to know that, like, the warm up, it's not like guys going out and doing a light jog and a bit of stretching. Like, it's full on. Guys are going as hard as they would in a game. Now, not necessarily body on body, but you're running flat out, you're hitting pads flat out. There's bodies going everywhere. It's not inconceivable that guys collide or an ankle could be rolled. So yeah, like, while it was surprising to see them pulling out late, it's understandable to see how it could happen. I think one of the interesting points that came out from that Leinster game was the clear out on Josh van der Flyer. I thought they've definitely missed a trick there, with all that's going on. I think that's something as a player, I think it should be a straight red card. I think that the person clearing out needs to have his wherewithal about him, and if a shoulder does connect with his head, he's got to take responsibility for it and deal with the consequences of it. So I think there just needs to be more black and white on the rules, whether you're clearing out, whether you're a tackler, whether you're a ball carrier leading with the elbow. As players, we need to realise that if you break those rules, you're going to be red carded.
Yeah, I think it was funny that the TMO discussed with the referee, do you want to take a second look at that? And the TMO was really, are you sure you don't want to just take another look at that one? Like, he was almost pushing it, but I suppose the referee has the final decision in it. But majority of people from chatting, it was a definite red card. Like, Van der Fleer was very lucky not to come away injured after that. Direct blow, shoulder to the head, didn't drop his body height, shoulder to the head in any other game. And we've seen it happen in the past. Is a red card, and a very, very clear red card. You're not going to see something as clear cut as that again. And I hope we don't see something as clear cut as that again. And maybe in future it will be refed properly.
Yeah, certainly. I know I've seen it in the NRL, Marcell, with the rugby league in Australia. So each team gets one challenge in a game, and I think it's a fine balance. We don't want players going up appealing to the ref, check this in the TMO, check that in the TMO. It kind of takes from the flow of the game a bit. But I think if each team had one challenge that they could make, and if the challenge is successful, they hold on to their challenge, for the likes of dangerous play or in the act of scoring to be able to say, look, I saw this. The referees can't spot everything. Same with the touch judges. I'm very sympathetic towards them. It's a really, really tough job. And, it's easy to look back on something in slow motion and say, oh, they should have spotted this, they should have spotted that. It's an extremely tough job. And while they're doing it, they've got to ensure that they're getting out of the way of the players. But I definitely think there can be more structure put around how the TMO is used and, players requesting for stuff to get checked. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Marcy.
Yeah, just in terms of the breakout clean-out and stuff, it's it's a fine margin, rugby is a contact sport, we want to get as physical as possible, that's one of the reasons I love playing the game, is the physicality of it. But like you said, there are rules and there are things you cannot do. We before the season started, we got addressed by the breakdown law, saying, listen, you can't dive anymore, you can't be reckless using your head and stuff, we have to change your technical tactics, how you approach the breakdowns, and it sort of looked like the refs were kind of strict on it the first couple of games, but a lot of penalties was arising around the breakdown, so I wonder if maybe it depends on the ref, probably on the day, but it just whether the consistency is the big thing, you want to play tough, but you want to be safe as well, not if you're playing against Munster or any of those are too, but like I said, it's going to be personal in a few weeks, so but yeah, look, as a player, I think the safety is very, very important, and if you have the resources like the TMOs, if you have touch judges that can lend a hand, just more eyes, what you also can see, like you said, they're also human beings. They're not always going to get it right, some calls over the weekend as well you kind of frown upon, but that's why the assistants are there, so make use of it.
Absolutely agreed. So hopefully we won't see too much of that against Munster in a few weeks' time. Lots of aggression, lots of hard hits, but hopefully none of that. No red cards, hopefully, for you, Marcell. No. As we're recording, Connacht are currently playing in the sports grounds against Ian's old side, Bristol Bears. So we'll keep in touch with how that game is getting on. That's it for part one. We'll be back with part two with all things Marcell Coetzee.
House of Rugby Ireland, here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.
Marcell Coetzee arrived at Ulster in summer of 2016 and showed early on what he was capable of. Any progress was ruined though, however, by serious knee injuries. He had back-to-back ACLs that saw him miss chunks of 2 seasons with Ulster. However, from 2018 on, Marcell demonstrated his undoubted class and along with John Cooney has been Ulster's best player these past few seasons. What an intro, Marcell. Before we get into your time in Ireland...
that last one, thanks for that one. That's a warming welcome.
No problem. Before we get onto your season with Ulster, all your seasons with Ulster and your time here in Ireland, can you just tell us about your life growing up in your hometown of Potchefstroom?
Yeah, so I was born in Potchefstroom, and then just before I went to school, I moved to the province KwaZulu-Natal, which is basically grew up on a sugarcane farm plantation just south of Durban, and which was fun, you had a bit of the farm life and then also the beach was 9 kilometers away from you, so you better have had the best of both worlds basically, and it was just enjoyed it, just the friends that you meet along the way, and then high school you went to Durban, high school Port Natal, and you enrolled in the Sharks Academy, and then just your dream came alive.
It just seems that anyone who's from South Africa, rugby is part of their life. Like anyone I've been chatting to in the show or anyone in the past, it just seems like it's almost a pathway that it's inevitable that someone from South Africa goes in that direction.
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of installed in our brains very, very young, The first toy I had was probably a rugby ball that my father kind of forced, and my mom was just, no, let him be, he'll choose, But look, it's a culture we are very, very proud of. We are South Africans, we do treasure rugby very highly in our country, It's always personal, and it's just a great, I think, set up for everyone just to come together over weekends. You invite your friends, you invite your family relatives, you make a big thing out of it. You get the braais going, you get your beers as well, and you just enjoy the vibe and the culture that it represents. And for me, growing up in South Africa, how special wasn't it, to be involved in a country which is so big on the rugby and also the passion behind the Springboks, which has done justice for itself around the world by competing competitions, World Cups, and just series. Yeah.
Morris, obviously I'd heard a lot about you and seen you playing before I was lucky enough to join the Ulster squad. But for me, the biggest thing that stood out for me is the high energy you bring every day. Like obviously you're bringing it at the weekend, week in, week out, and putting in big performances. But for me, it's how you conduct yourself during the week. That the high energy, you're pumping guys' tires up, you're bringing the physicality to training. Is that something that you've always kind of prided yourself on, through school and through the academies?
To be honest, not really. No, it takes a guy for you to advise it and see. Listen, that's what you kind of bring into the week, But I think in anything in life, if you enjoy what you're doing and you're passionate about it, you can't help to get energy from the guys that you work with, and you just want to contribute as much as you can, building up into a big game week. It's probably my biggest energy giver is rugby. Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. And taking the injuries that I had in the past, you kind of. I think the biggest thing is you shouldn't take it for granted. Every moment we go on the field, we don't know if it's going to be taken away from us and such. And in the case for me, I had a bit of bad luck coming over the first 2 years. And I think in that period, I just realized, listen, take every game and just enjoy it, because, our career span is so short, actually, if you take it, and you must just make every moment count and just enjoy every minute.
Yeah,
how hard
absolutely.
was that? How hard, Marcell, was it coming over and, trying to make a name for yourself in a province, in a new country, in a new team, and then to do one ACL and then come back and then do the second one? Like, it's a 9-month injury. Like, how long did it take you to come back from either one of those? And did you learn from the first one when you did the second one, like the rehab was the same, or was it a completely different injury all over again?
Yeah, it was really tough. I think if for any player that does a ACL, imprisonment or long-term injury, it is really tough. The road can be lonely at times, especially rehabbing. But just coming over with the injury, you already had a kind of setback, because I think the biggest thing as you go to a new club, you want to establish yourself quite early. You want to show the fans, you want to show what you're capable of because they're investing in you. And I think the biggest frustration for me personally was just that 2 years not being able to do that, and it's just sort of a burden hanging over your head because I think my personal guilt felt within me, although it wasn't your fault, injuries happen, it's part of the game, but it's, I think it was just the inner guilt in me of these guys doing all they can, bring you over and investing so much in you, and you can't really reward them for that, and when the time came, just to answer your question, yeah, it was both ACL injuries and also the meniscus that went. So it was basically 3 knee operations in 2 years, So the road didn't look too good for me at the moment, And it was actually a big turning point, the second one, especially when the Ulster had to decide whether they're going to renew my contract or not, because I only played a handful of games at that stage, So, mentally it took its toll, and a bit of bright light came when they said, no, listen, we're going to back you and we're going to go through with this, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that just ultimately gave me the confidence saying, listen, well, hey, they're backing me. Let's do whatever I can just to get back and just to appreciate the game again and just give a bit of back for that union that's backed me up.
Yeah, like when your contract was up, even after the 2 years, you'd still shown in those 5 or 6 games that you'd played, you still showed that you'd still had it, and there was plenty of demand elsewhere, and there was lucrative offers, being thrown in from French clubs that were, everyone was aware of them at the time. But I know from a player's perspective and also from the supporters in Ulster, there's a huge amount of respect for you that, you said, no, look, I'm going to stay here and show you guys what I've got. Did you feel off the back of the injuries, did you feel like you wanted to kind of prove a point and stay around? Was that one of the factors?
Yeah, definitely. I just felt at that stage, it was a big decision for me and my wife to make at the time. And I just looked at the options that was presenting itself, and it was just basically a no-brainer. You were sort of facing retirement, staring at retirement, and the people of Ulster and the union at the time and the coaches, they just backed you, and they said, listen, we're going to give you an opportunity still, despite all the odds, and that just really stuck at me. It just shows me, there are sometimes a bit of loyalty in the game that we play. With the game going on professional, that was just a huge effect on me, and it kind of made it a no-brainer at the end. When another opportunity presented itself to renew your contract with Ulster, it was just a no-brainer, and it was an awesome experience so far. Luckily you weren't too much on the sideline with injuries now at the moment. You could have given a bit of back, and just enjoyed with the Oaks, because Ian, as as you go to a new union, the only way you can prove yourself is sharing the battlefield with your comrades, and that's when you really learn to get understand each other, where he's from, his culture, what he represents, and it's just a phenomenal feeling.
At the end of the day, though, it is a business. Sport is a business, and Ulster obviously saw so much in you to keep you on, not just on the field. You're like Ian is chatting to you there about, it's not just the stuff on the field, it's everything else. It's you're pumping guys up, you're getting them ready for the week ahead, and it's a lot of stuff. People notice that stuff off the field as well as on the field, and that contributes to the team environment, and obviously you're a very central part to that environment. Your main strengths are your ball carrying abilities. You clearly love the mauls, unlike myself and Ian. And the breakdown, the carry, the tackle area. What do you see are your main strengths as a player?
Yeah, I think every guy that plays rugby, he's got that something special that he brings to the game, which makes him unique on the field. And I think for me personally, I just love the collisions of it. Since I was a little boy, I just wanted to get the ball in my hand. I love to carry, just to be involved in the game as much as possible. If you're not carrying, you want to defend, and if it's a breakdown, you want to slow it down. You just want to throw your whole body basically into the game, because there's no better feeling of just playing with a bunch of guys that you really appreciate every day, and manage to create big moments and maybe win a trophy now and then, which would be nice. And it's just a blessing. I think, first of all, like I mentioned earlier, you don't really know what you have until you lose it, basically. And for me, those 2 years did a lot of reflection, and just I said to my next step, whatever comes or how many minutes I get, you just gotta enjoy every minute and just live for the moment now.
Yeah, certainly. Like Eimear touched on it there. You're probably the best ball carrier I've seen. Your ability to have late footwork at the contact line, the way you can swivel your hips, and you've one of the best fend offs that I've seen, as Jamie Heasip knows well from 2014. But yeah, like what kind of work, Marcell, do you put in during the week, to prepare yourself for that kind of physical battle that you're going into at the weekend?
Yeah, I think as the game is growing, the game is just getting more physical, more quicker, and I think a big important factor we as players have to acknowledge, is our prep going into the week, being professional on what you do building up to a big game, and I think at the moment at Ulster we have a very good S&C team that really looks after you, in terms of conditioning wise. They acknowledge your strength and your weakness and what you need to work on, and for me, basically, it's just being consistent in everything I do, whether it's in my power in the gym and the little bit of weightlifting and stuff. Sometimes the Monday, Tuesday, the body's still too sore to lift anything, and then you adapt from that. So I think it's so important to have a good communication between the medical staff that look after you, and to be professional about it. And for basically, it's a tough one, because a lot of guys think if they invest too much time in gym, then they're going to be the world's best players. It's not always the case, I think it's in terms of the mental edge that you also have to bring, what's working for you individualistic. And not every player is the same, some guys feed off that, some guys feed off just rocking up. I remember, hearing a lot of stories about Schalk Burger as well, who didn't love the gym at all, for instance. But, give that man a ball and he'll create havoc for you, So it's the personalities. And I can name a bunch of guys that I played with. Willem Albert, he's just a massive frame, big guy. And he wasn't the most conditioned guy, I would say personally, but man, he rocked up and he just destroyed it.
Going forward with Ulster, they've a really, really good Guinness Pro 14 so far. Obviously getting to the final last year, losing was disappointing, but Ulster have been proving really, really positive, and there's lots of good things happening up there. What are your hopes for, I suppose, the Inch Pros over the Christmas period and moving into 2021?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing now, obviously the last two results didn't go our favour, so I think the biggest thing now is just to create that confidence in the team again, saying, listen, we're looking very good at the pro. 14 table at the moment. Let's make the most of it. What's done is done. We can't really change that the past, even if we wanted to. But I think the biggest thing now is just to get together as a squad. Setting ourselves our goals. We've got big games like Ian mentioned now coming up into the new year and stuff. And we want to keep that continuity going in the Pro 14. So. Yeah, look, it will be a day-by-day mantra basis, just making sure we get the little things right, which ultimately will lead to bigger things. So, just looking forward to the challenge that's presenting itself. Huh?
Yeah, just talking about the Guinness Pro 14 there, Mars. There's obviously been a lot of talk about the South African teams potentially coming on board in 2021. What are your thoughts on that? And, obviously you've been part of playing Super Rugby and the challenges that proposes. Do you think it'd be a good option for the super teams in South Africa to join the Guinness Pro 14?
No, absolutely. Early in my career, I played Super Rugby, and it's a great tournament. You get to compete against the All Blacks and Australian players, which they represent. But one negative thing I could remember from playing in those days is just the traveling factor. The time away from your family as well. It's a month's tours at times. And let's say you get to playoffs or semis in those stages. It is kind of hard to travel with the time zones that you have to adapt and stuff. And I just find, from my personal experience coming over abroad now and playing in the Pro 14, it's a unique competition. You get to compete against internationals every weekend, whether it's from Scotland, Wales, or Ireland. It's just great platform to measure yourself and where you play. If you take the European Cup as well, the top sides of what the English and France produce as well. And you've seen a lot of players over the years that has come over and just developed into exceptional rugby players. And there's a lot of names we can mention. But I think in terms of this whole South African dynamic, I think it will really be beneficial going forward. It's a small thing, like I mentioned, but the travel will make a huge difference. We're kind of in the same time elapsed as well. The rugby, I think the competition will make it a lot more competitive. The South African sides that are joining, those are proud unions. It's unfortunate that what happened to the Cheetahs and Kings, but the unions that are coming in will be great for the competition and just bringing that competitive factor, X factor.
Yeah, I think even for the supporters of South African rugby, I know I've spoken to you about it in the change rooms, but for them supporting in Super Rugby, let's say they play 2 weeks in a row, and then you're not going to see your team potentially for 6 weeks while they go and tour, and play against the Australian and Kiwi sides. Do you think it would be a positive thing for them that at least every second weekend, like what we're used to here, that they can go and support their team and be more kind of connected with them, and the week-to-week process as opposed to the touring that Super Rugby has?
Yeah, 100%. I think you think about how it's going to affect the international format then as well. Are they going to just change everything, and one-sided, or are they just going to keep it like it is now? So it's very weird times now at the moment how they want to play the format. But I think in general, the hypes of the new tournament, just a bit of new, fresh breath, energy that will bring to the whole culture of South Africa. There are a few games at the moment being shown back at home at the Guinness Games, and a lot of South African fans have really bought into that. I think it will just escalate. Look, it will be a process the first couple of 2 seasons for all the unions that are joining. And it might take a process like it did with the Cheetahs and the Kings, but I think ultimately once we get a bit of consistency with it, I think the whole culture and everyone will just jump on board with it, and players as well.
Ian, do you think there'll be a change in format of the Pro 16 now that there'll be obviously 16 teams, and will it be what kind of format do you think they're going to go with it?
Yeah, I think how it could work. So I think they'll go with the 2 conferences. So you'll probably have 8 teams in each conference. So you'll have 2 South African teams in each one. And similar to what we would have seen with the Guinness Pro 14, you'll go and play the 2 away games in a row. And you'll obviously be in South Africa for 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks off the back of that. And vice versa. When the South African teams come over to Europe, I'm sure they'll most likely stay for a couple of weeks. I'm not 100% sure how they did it in the past, but the good thing is, we're on the same time zone. I think it's only an 8-hour flight, which is doable if you're doing it you wouldn't want to be doing it every second week, that's for sure. But I think if you're doing it for 2 games in a row, it actually provides a break in your own season. It's a change of environment, a potential change in climate as well, which would be welcome, especially dealing with the weather we have up here. So look, I think there's lots of excitement from a player's perspective in Europe. So there's a lot of positives. I think we've seen in the league this year, it hasn't been competitive enough. Leinster, Munster, Ulster, all 8 from 8. We need a more competitive league, which will then transfer over to the Irish teams being even more competitive in Europe and being even more competitive internationally. You can't have too big a step from each of those tiers, and there probably is that at the moment.
I think with the time difference as well, and Schalk a few weeks back mentioned about how the fans are the biggest part of the rugby in South Africa. It's like you live and breathe rugby, and with the time difference, with more games, with a lot of South African players playing in Irish teams and in the European teams in the Guinness Pro 14, there's already a keen interest in the Guinness Pro 14. I think this will be really good for the game and really good for the fans, because it will make it more competitive, but also South African fans are probably one of the best in the world when it comes to supporting rugby. So I think that's some really good positives going into the new format of the Guinness Pro 16 as it will be.
Yeah, I think even leading into the Lions Tour this summer, if the Guinness Pro 16 as it could be ran before that, I think it would create great excitement going into that Lions Tour. And I suppose on that, Morris, I'm sure you've got great memories of the tour back in 2009, and tell us about your ambitions of getting into that squad for the Lions Tour this summer.
Yeah, well, if you mentioned 2009, I was 18 years old, watching the games that took place, and I could just remember the physicality of both sides. Particularly that second test up at Loftus. It was really brutal, physical and brutaling, and everything you wanted as a spectator at the time. It's weird to think that was 12 years ago almost. And now there's an opportunity to maybe put your name maybe in the hat to get an opportunity to represent it. So look, there's a huge hype in South Africa at the moment. After the World Cup, there was great happiness and joy all over the country. And you kind of wonder what's next now. And then you've got the Lions coming in 2 years' time. So no, look, the whole South Africa is very excited about it. We as players, I think every player at the moment is just want to be consistent in these performance and just make a bit of noise, maybe just to want to be a part of that mix. Like you said, it only comes every 12 years. So. I was 18 at the time, and then I'll probably be 30 if the games take place. I'm not going to say that too loud now, but it's like I said, 100%. So no, look, it's a spectacle, and I think it's one of the great tournaments or series we can host on our soil. It is the Lions Tour.
Bring us back to the conversation that you had with Rassie Erasmus in 2019 ahead of the Rugby World Cup.
Oh yeah, well, so basically, you sort of at the tournament where the season came to its end, and I went on holiday for 3 weeks in South Africa. One of my favorite places is my guest house there close to the Kruger National Park. Kind of a big bushman. I enjoy that side of South Africa a lot. And I just didn't hear anything. And it was 2-3 weeks. The day I was meant to fly back to Belfast the next day. I actually got the phone call from Rassie, and it was just so unexpectedly. I had to report to camp on the Monday, and for not being in the team for a while, and stepping into that format and meeting new guys and old mates like Eben and Peter Stephan, those guys, was just great to see them again in that setup, and you sort of kind of got the sense as you were there in the following days, something special was going to brew.
Could you feel it from the start that there was, the competition was there, the rivalry was there, the players were there from the very start from joining the squad?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what phenomenal was from being part of that week, is the leadership that we had. Rassie, Joe.ie, who's the head coach now at the moment, and all the management and stuff, they abundantly made it clear when we arrived there on the first day, listen, this is what they wanted to achieve. They wanted to win the rugby championship, and then they wanted to go all the way to the World Cup, So that kind of set the bar for a lot of players saying, listen, there's no time really to waste here, You have to do your part, and every opportunity you get to represent your country. Now you have to make the most out of it, And I think what helped so well was everyone was on the same page, Obviously South Africa that had a bit of a dip, years just before that, I think the first thing I sensed with all the players, they were still carrying that hurt and that pain which they went through, and they realized what the other side is from rugby as well. And I think that hunger and passion just showed those coming weeks building up to the World Cup, through the championship, and then ultimately led to the World Cup, So there was just an uttermost desire to go all the way together as a squad.
Yeah, there was no doubt that you were going to play a big part in that World Cup. When you got injured, did you know at the time? Did you kind of have a bad feeling that you'd done something serious that could have ruled you out?
Yeah, that was a bad one. Just like I mentioned now, the opportunity. I think the biggest thing that knocked me, was the opportunity that was given to maybe put your name onto Japan. It wasn't a dead certain everything, and that was the moment to show you what you're worth. And ultimately, I only got 15 minutes when you realize you had that ankle injury that you did, and the concussion that you picked up in that game. So no, look, bitterly disappointment. Especially because, like I mentioned, you sort of felt something special brewing in this group, and what they were going for, and just to have missed out on that, was a bit demoralizing at the time, But look, time heals all wounds, and it's probably a scar that will always be carrying with me, But you know what? At the end of the day, the boys did it, and the country was in great jubilation, and how could you not celebrate that? I mean, from where we started and how we ended, it was just special. Seeing the boys lift the cup there as well, mates like Eimear and Peter Steph playing beautiful rugby and just playing big parts in that World Cup, just made you proud again as well, So, you kind of sit down after the time, you say, okay, well, what's your goals now? What are you going to chase now, So, yeah, it looks like the Lions are on the horizon, So it will be phenomenal to get an opportunity there. But in rugby, it doesn't work that way, It's not scripted, You have to work hard, you have to be consistent in your performance, and you have to work for if you want to achieve success, And I think that is the biggest thing focusing now.
If there's ever a man who deserves a bit of luck, it's going to be you leading into that Lions tour. So we'll all be supporting and cheering you on.
You're my teammate. You have to say that.
I'm not your teammate, and I hope you make the Lions tour. So Marcell, unfortunately, there's been quite a South African rugby has got dogged with doping scandals in the past few months, years. Unfortunately, Ralapele and Deanti have got 8 and 4-year bans. Is this a problem that's prevalent in South African rugby, or is it trying to be stamped out?
Yeah, those are very unfortunate instances that happened. For me playing in South Africa, there was always structures and systems to avoid doping where we can. They really were. Even at school level where I played, they brought in systems and people that talk about it and say, listen, this is not necessary. There's a lot of other things that you can do instead of this. So no, 100%. It's really a case at the moment. Where South Africa is really priding itself on. We want to stop it where we can. And it's just so unfortunate that sometimes it does go the other way.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And like Marcell, for someone that is as strong and powerful as yourself, like to some of our younger listeners who are have the ambition of playing professionally or trying to put on weight or get more powerful or get stronger, what kind of advice would you have for them?
No, well, definitely don't resolve to that. Just I think long term, it's not good for your body. If you do your studies on it and stuff, it's not necessary. You've got so many good stuff out there, the training equipment and good diet plans and stuff, that will help you achieve your goals, and I just think that's probably the worst thing you could do as a youngster. You only have one body, and you have to look after it in as best you can, and don't poison it with stuff like that. You can just see how it affects a lot of people, and no, from my personal view, stay away. It's not always the short steps that you need to take in order to be a rugby player. You have to go the long yards, and that is where working twice as hard as your opponent and just having a high work ethic and just being disciplined yourself, So no, stuff like that is definitely not needed in the sport.
I know when I was playing sevens with Ireland, we got tested very rigorously. It happens in 15s, but not as rigorously, just due to the sevens being an Olympic sport and being involved with Sport Ireland and all that. But we had to do whereabouts when we were, in camp or when we were not there, and we basically had to give an hour where we would be free, where they would know our whereabouts every single day and every single weekend. If I was going home to Clare, I'd always have to let them know, etc. Is that the case for you guys as professionals as well?
Yeah, it's been slightly different for me in the sense when I was playing in Ireland or playing in France or playing in the UK, the testing has been slightly different. So in the UK, for example, they do hair testing. So I think it's every 2 or 3 months they come in and maybe half the squad get a sample of their hair taken. And that's really for recreational drugs. So like cocaine, marijuana, those kind of things that can show up in a hair sample. Now, if you tested positive, you wouldn't actually get a ban. It would be dealt with in-house. I think you get a fine and the club deals with it internally. It's not seen as a performance enhancing drug. But I think the testing that we go through throughout a season, if the testers come in on a Monday morning, that's technically an out of competition test. They're really looking for performance enhancing drugs in your system. It's not recreational. Whereas if you get tested after a game, they're looking for everything, both recreational and performance enhancing. So there are some intricacies within the testing, but I think we've seen. I know that the testers have been in Ulster the last few weeks. I think they've been in 3 or 4 times. It is very rigorous, and I think you'd catch wind of anything untoward going on. And luckily, it's not something that I've seen throughout my career of players taking performance enhancing drugs. So and I think it'd be very, very hard to get away with it now, the way the testing is.
I agree, and I think as well it's not just performance enhancing drugs. Like, it's something as simple as there was a Munster player obviously with the prescription that was wrong and they didn't read it, or it could just be like a protein shake that's not batch tested. Like, we have to, as athletes, it could be Nurofen Plus. Like, Nurofen Plus in competition you would fail. Am I right in saying that? There's some ones that aren't necessarily performance enhancing.
Sudafed's another one.
Yeah.
Like Sudafed, because pseudoephedrine isn't allowed in competition. And it is easily, obviously we're all advised on it, but you could easily make a mistake by buying something over the counter in a pharmacy and think, oh, I've bought it over the counter, there won't be any issue with this. So yeah, for any young players coming through, always consult your doctor and make sure that you're abiding by all the rules, because it'd be terrible for something like that to trip you up when you're starting off your career.
Absolutely. Marcell, it's time for the House of Rugby Challenge. So earlier on, we asked you to bring in 3 items or show us 3 items, and hopefully there's a nice story behind each one of those items. So the first one was a piece of rugby memorabilia. The second was a jersey that you have swapped and held on to. And the third was something non-rugby that you treasure. So I'm really looking forward to these stories. So the first one, a piece of rugby memorabilia. What is it and what's the story behind it?
Well, I think at the time, you were about to embark on your professional rugby career, and my mate used to train at a training facility where PSPs used to train, and he knew I was a big PSPs fan, and he sort of managed to get like a Springbok jersey signed for me from PSPs just as I was about to embark on the Sharks game, and when he surprised me that for Christmas, ironically enough, I just got this and I was thinking to myself, wow, I mean, this was so cool, and on the jersey he wrote like a verse from the Bible, one of my favorite verses, that your best is yet to come, and that was just before me embarking on my professional career. So that was just something to hold on to and just remember when the going gets tough, words from a wise man, so.
It's crazy to think the impact that somebody like a player can have on someone so young. Like, Ian, have you ever been inspired by somebody or like met your heroes, or who did you look up to as a young Leinster player?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, remember Raj coming in when I was in first year in school. So I'd say he would have been maybe mid to late 20s. I was about 12. So he came in, I think it was part of some brand ambassador he was doing with maybe Esso or Topaz, one of those. But he came in, he spoke to us, he was absolutely brilliant. And I remember getting his autograph and just absolutely cherishing it and thinking this is the best thing ever. Another one was actually Andrew Trimble, who Marcell would have played with in Ulster. He came in and spoke to us when I was in 4th year in school, so a small bit more mature. So it would have been about 15, and he came in and he just gone professional then. He was probably about 20 or 21, and he actually spoke about his faith. He's, a very religious man, and his kind of work ethic and how hard he's worked to get to where he is. And I remember touring with him a few years later and saying, "Oh, you probably don't remember this, but you might have, you came in and you spoke to our year, and you actually had a massive impact." And it was something that he probably didn't think a whole lot of the time, but to give him the feedback and for him to see that he'd left a big impact on us, probably meant a lot to him. So no, look, it's definitely something that we're all aware of as players. The impact we can have on younger kids coming through, and I think it's a part of it that we really enjoy, and we're very privileged to be able to reach out to people and help out where we can.
Absolutely. Marcell, a jersey that you have swapped and held on to, which one is that?
I think the one that kind of sticks out for me, as in 2012, we played Ireland at the Viva Stadium, and there was an Irish player making his debut at the time there, and I must say, when he first came on, and I kind of watched him across me over the scrum there, and I was just thinking, there's no way this guy can be a rugby player, he just doesn't look the part for me. And ultimately, at the time, I was proven so wrong, because afterwards, the player gave me his jersey, and we swapped jerseys afterwards, and we just managed to chat a little bit. Without knowing, a few years later, it will be Ian Henderson being my captain, here at Ulster, and a British Irish line. So, how wrong was I in that case, So, no, look, yes, it just it shows you don't judge a book by its cover at all, and he just managed to grow into one of the best players, we have here at the club and in Ireland, and it's just phenomenal being captain with him as well. His leadership quality shows, and I think we miss that actually at the moment as well, just that calmness and experience that he brings, So, I think that is a story that will really stick out with me, without knowing that we would be teammates one day, or where the road might lead us, and ultimately led to Ulster and us, and we're just laughing about the story now.
That's a really nice story. It's like almost Ian and yourself planted it so that it would be told as a good story in the future. Was that in? Did you think
talk to
that?
Matt all this morning? No.
Was that an element when you were making the decision to come to Ulster, knowing that Ian Henderson was there, or did you even think twice about that when you thought about his jersey that you had swapped, or did you even notice?
No. To be honest, no. Like, how talks came was Ruan Pino was here at the time, and he just always spoke about how he loved the club, and how they look after its players, and he just loved every minute here, and you kind of caught on that feeling. Listen, this could be a really special place to expand your horizons and just show your talent as a player, And when you came over and you saw the likes of Rory Best here at the time, Andrew Trimble, Tommy Bowe, Ian Henderson, all those names that I can mention a couple of names, it just showed you what quality we had, and still have, and just what the union means to a lot of players, and to be able to call some of them my friends now, where I've never thought possible starting off early in my career, So it's just phenomenal to have guys like Ian as well to call them friends now, So.
Very good. He's delighted with that mention.
Yeah, chuffed.
Well, a few weeks ago, Marcell, Ian was chatting about you, and his eyes just lit up. He was just so happy to talk about you. So it's obviously mutual. So it's a good thing.
You're my boy, Blue.
Yeah.
Marcell, what about something non-rugby that you treasure?
Definitely. I think I've mentioned it earlier, but I've got a guest house there, close to the Kruger National Park there, I'm a huge bush junkie, if you can call it that, and I just love being with the wildlife and the animals, and I think every time when the rugby gets too much, or you just need that break away from rugby just to get your mental edge back, or just do a restart button, that would always be my go-to, and it's I think if you have to draw a map, it's like 4.5 hours away from Johannesburg Airport, and just the scenery around it, is so relaxing and easy. If you're having a braai with your mates or with your family, and you hear lions roaring across the river, or you go into safari and you see elephants just walking there, and see wild dogs. I can talk the whole day about this particular one, but keep it short. But yeah, just ultimately a big bush fanatic, and I just want to enjoy the pleasures it always gives me, and that'd definitely be my precious. Other than my wife as well, naturally. But yeah, that'd definitely be my go-to.
Very good. That sounds amazing. Like, what, giraffes, elephants, wild animals, like walking around. Is it slightly scary though at the same time, or is it just normal to you?
No, you sort of get used to it after a while. I remember making a video for the boys in lockdown, about my surroundings. I was caught up in 4 months there in lockdown at my guest house, and it was so surreal when you wake up in the morning, you still had to train, and when you would jog down, all of a sudden a wildebeest is chasing you, or like a giraffe is just staring at you, and yeah, it was just a different element to it, and just soak that in every day, and it was actually so enjoyable, at the time, and no, that's definitely my retreat, it was installed in me since I was very young with my father and my mother. They just loved it, we just constantly went on holidays there together. And God just blessed me with that guest house, which I could renovate now and give people also that experience now coming over. It's called Into the Pride, on Instagram if you want to follow it and stuff. It's just videos where you share memories, and the animals get so used to people living around there. You can feed them pellets out of your hands, and it's just so unique being with nature, And I think as Ian will know, I'm a big nature fan, and that's just my ultimate getaway.
Well, Skalka has invited us over to his house, and now we're going to have to tour your place as well. So that's 2 places in South Africa that we plan on visiting whenever we get there.
Rent free.
Absolutely. Anyway, Marcell, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on here today. We'll have to get you back on again so you can tell us more about your house in the bush. But really, really huge thank you for having us on. It was an absolute pleasure to chat to you here today.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for the honor and the time, man. I really appreciate it. And anytime, man.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks a million, Mars. It's been brilliant.
A big thank you to producer Pat, Paul, Dermot, Anthony, and everyone that helped getting this show together today. This has been House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe, together with Guinness. Slán go fóill.
Slán.
House of Rugby Ireland here on Joe, together with Guinness. Game changed.